Lucifer Season 5 just wrapped up, and I think I speak for everyone when I say I'm so ready for Season 6 to be released. We don't even know if they've begun filming the 6th and final season of Lucifer yet, but we've got some awesome new information to tide you over until we know more. Some of the cast have been hiding some pretty big secrets from you that I'm sure you'd love to know. So let's dive into some of the juicy details about the cast members and their characters that you might not have known. Before we get started, be sure to hit that like button and ring the notification bell for more videos. Lucifer was supposed to be American. So if you watched a single episode of Lucifer, you've likely noticed one key thing. All of the cast members are American except for, well, Lucifer. He's the only British cast member on the team, though it wasn't supposed to be this way. Even though Ellis was hired for the role, the director asked him to use an American accent while filming. He did this for a short while, but everyone soon realized that using an American accent made Lucifer seem like a total jerk. I mean, in reality, I'm sure the devil himself is a pretty serious jerk, but that wasn't the vibe they were going for with Tom Ellis' rendition of Lucifer. It became pretty clear that some changes needed to be made, so rather than use an American accent, Tom Ellis decided to use his natural British accent to make Lucifer seem much less abrasive. It's a good thing they hired a guy that could do both, otherwise this show may have been dead in the water. But when you really think about it, isn't it pretty strange that almost everything sounds better with a British accent? You can insult someone's intelligence and just be downright rude, but as long as you have a British accent, it's not nearly as hurtful. Strange.
Setting the table.
You broke into my house?
Yes, well, I hope you don't mind, but I made a little brekkie. You were taking forever in the shower. What do you do in there?
You are unbelievable.
Tom Ellis is a comedian. We can't really fault you if you didn't know this, but most fans have no idea that Tom Ellis is actually a comedian. He's fairly well known across the pond and has acted in shows like The Catherine Tate Show and Miranda. For the most part, Tom has only ever appeared in comedic roles, so taking on the role of the devil was definitely a change in pace for him. He seems to be really confident playing Lucifer though, and he definitely brings a bit of comedy to the set as well. Tom spoke about his decision to play such a divisive character and said, "I've worked a lot in comedy. As much as I love playing dramatic roles, it's always nice to be able to have some humor around when working. It was just different in concept, and the character was a different character to a lot of the ones I'd been reading. I have to say, even though this was a step in a different direction for Tom, I couldn't imagine anyone playing the role better than him."
You look like hell.
But not heard that before.
Are you drunk?
I wish.
Filming in LA. I'm sure you know that loads of television shows have been filmed in Canada. A massive portion of the content that premieres on the CW is filming in Canada for a variety of reasons. It's much easier to film in Canada, and for some people, it's considered neutral ground because everyone in Canada is so much nicer. Let's be real, we all know that filming in Los Angeles is difficult and you're always surrounded by jerks who are only in the business for themselves. However, once Netflix bought the rights to the series and began working on Season 3, they abandoned the idea of filming in Canada and decided to move the show closer to home, filming in Los Angeles like most other television shows on American TV. This was a welcome change by most of the cast members because the show was supposed to be taking place in LA all along. Filming in Canada meant that they had to be a bit picky about where they filmed and what landmarks may have appeared in certain scenes. Though filming the series in the location where the story actually takes place eased a lot of tension for the film crew and the cast. It's based on a comic series. I'll admit, being a pretty big fan of Lucifer, I didn't know this fact until after watching almost the entire series. Did you know that Lucifer and the rest of the characters are heavily based on characters from a series of comic books published by DC? The show takes a lot, and I mean a lot, of creative liberties. However, it's still technically based on a comic series. For the most part, the television show just reuses some of the classic characters from the comics. Almost every plotline has been changed, and many of the characters are a far cry from their comic book counterparts. You could think of Lucifer in a similar way to Riverdale. If you've ever seen Riverdale, the series is based on characters who were created for the Archie comic series. However, the television series tells a much different story than the comics. Tom Ellis' children couldn't care less. If you've followed Tom Ellis for any amount of time, you'll know that he's happily married and has 3 little girls. He spoke in an interview with People magazine and said that his little girls couldn't care less about who he plays on television. All they care about is that he is their dad, which is amazing. He said, "My kids are the least impressed about any work that I do, which is quite amusing. Time and time again, if I'm on the telly, I'll go, "Look, it's Dad on the telly," and they'll sort of look up, give it a cursory glance, and then carry on with what they're doing, because it really doesn't faze them at all. Even though his kids may not care too much about his job as an actor, it's great to see his young family stick together. Well, sort of. Tom did get a divorce in 2014, which definitely shook his family up a little bit. Tom Ellis is a musician. I'm sure this was pretty apparent to anyone who has watched a couple of seasons of the show, but we all know that Lucifer loves to play piano and sing in his nightclub. But these are actually two of Tom Ellis' real-world hobbies. He loves singing to his friends and family and grew up playing the French horn. This is definitely a pretty random instrument, but he loves to sing more than anything. So it's awesome to see that the writers and crew were able to fit this into his character somehow. It's not often that characters get to play characters that are so similar to themselves. Tom Ellis' body double. I'm sure you've noticed that there are several bare-backed scenes in Lucifer that show off his stunningly crafted bum. But did you know that he doesn't use a body double? That's right, everything you see on screen is pure, unadulterated Tom Ellis. He lost a bet with his personal trainer, which meant he had to agree to do all of his own nude scenes. This meant he had to spend months getting into shape so he'd look his best on screen. Neil Gaiman loves the show. While Neil Gaiman may not be an actor in the Lucifer series, he certainly played a major role in bringing the series to television screens across the globe. That's because Neil is the author of the original comic book series that brought many of the Lucifer characters to life. However, the Lucifer series we have all come to know and love is only a loose adaptation of the comic books. Lucifer came to life in the Sandman comic series that was published by DC Comics before eventually getting his own comic series. Tom Ellis was asked about the comic series, and fans wondered if he used the comics as inspiration for the show. However, Tom was blissfully unaware that the television show was based on a comic book character. However, in spite of this, Lucifer spoke about a time that Neil Gaiman reached out to him, saying, "I hadn't used anything from the comic to start with, but since then, Neil Gaiman, who was behind the original incarnation, has got in touch with me. He told me he really enjoyed the pilot, so that was nice. It was almost like one of the parents giving us their blessing." Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like button and ring the notification bell for more videos.